Talks. John Robinson, your host here. One thing I've never claimed to be is super technologically advanced. So every single week that we do this, it seems like there's always some new little bug that I'm learning how to work through. So appreciate you all being here. If you are here with me live right now, I know that some people are going to watch later, but if you're here with me live right now, then why don't you do me a big favor and just say, hey, John, I can hear you. Say something in the comments so that I know I'm actually connected with you guys. Some of you can hear me, some of you cannot. But if you cannot hear me, it might be because your volume is turned down. So turn your volume up, get out your keyboard, and send me a little comment. Just say, yes, I can hear you, John. John, I can hear you. Give me a thumbs up. Give me something to let me know that we're actually out there and you can hear me. Peggy, I see you. Can you hear me, Peggy? Give me a thumbs up. Say yes, no, maybe so. Appreciate you, Peggy. And Peggy's a good friend of mine over in the Portland area. I'm broadcasting from Boise, Idaho. And in fact, I'm not just in Boise, Idaho. I'm down in what is one of the fastest growing gentrifying areas of Boise, and that is Garden City. Today I'm out of Garden City. I'm posted up in my little office on site. Thank you, Peggy. Peggy says she can hear me. So if Peggy can hear me, then that's all that matters. Tanya said I can hear you perfect. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate that. So down here in Garden City, there's this whole thing called gentrification that's taking place. And Garden City is an interesting spot historically here in the Boise area. Garden City used to be a place where back in the early days of the founding of Boise, Idaho, Garden City was where a lot of the Chinese immigrant workers would come in. Of course, the mines that were here, ore mines, ore mining, gold mining, coal mining, just a lot of different mining that went on here in this area. And there was a lot of Chinese workers back in the 1800s that really were kind of the backbone of the labor operations and did a lot of the grunt work. And they had their camp, and they would camp out down here by the rivers, and they had their gardens where they would grow their herbs and all their different things that the Chinese did at the time. And so they called this area Garden City. In fact, there's a main thoroughfare that goes through here. It's called Chinden Boulevard, Chinden. And that Chinden was kind of an abbreviation of Chinese gardens. It was the Chinden. So anyway, it's kind of interesting when you find out, years later as you're living in a place, what the history is all about and what actually makes it what it is. And so down here in Garden City, this area has been known really from its very earliest days as kind of an area that was where a lot of the more poor folks worked, kind of a working class. There's a lot of industrial type buildings down here, a lot of space that was, there's a ton of mobile home parks, trailer courts, things like that. And just a lot of properties that were for a long time. I remember when my wife and I first got married here 25 years ago, 26 years ago here in September. We got married in just up the road from where I'm at right now, just a couple of miles away. We got married. It was almost like Garden City was a place that you were like, yeah, watch out, Garden City. Ugh. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with Garden City. And yet, what's happening right now in this area, this gentrification that's taking place, is there's developers that are buying up properties, large swaths of land. And of course, you know what happens. Stuff gets torn down. A lot of things end up just kind of going away. And that history, that historic use that's been there forever, it kind of just goes away almost overnight. And then you have these new buildings pop up. It's actually really, really neat to see the new stuff come in because really a lot of it is an improvement. But what happens a lot of times too is you actually have kind of an erasage. I don't know if that's a word or not, but an erasage of the historic, just the story, the people, the reason why people were in a certain area. It all kind of tends to get just washed away or buried under so much, backfill. And so anyway, I always, when I'm working on a project that has anything to do like that, I like to try to learn the history, find out what's going on. And what we're doing right now, this is just a very small infill lot situation. So two city lots side by side. And both of these city lots were were purchased by the company partners that I'm working with. And so kind of a builder developer. There's some guys that I've known for a while here, and I'm working in a really kind of a just a I think you would say more of a 9 to 5 role. Or that someone said, "Oh, you're back to the 9 to 5." I said, "No, I'm actually now it's more like 5 to 9 because I'm still doing all the stuff that I'm doing as much as I can, but I'm also prioritizing this role that I'm in now because they've got active projects, they've got things that need to be done, and so I'm working in this role that is not something that I'm not familiar with. It's just been about 6 years since I've been in a any kind of a paid, hourly position, and so it's a little bit different. It's been a little bit for getting used to for me, but part of what I'm doing down here in this little infill project is just really kind of getting my bearings around me and finding out, okay, what's going on? What are investors paying for property down this area? And here's what's really interesting, and here's what's something that I think a lot of people that might even have an awareness of valuation of properties. They kind of know that this is what tends to happen. And so they try to get stuff under contract, or maybe they hold out for getting the highest price possible. One of the things that I've learned in this area, and I might have mentioned this on a previous show, so you guys stop me if I did. Somebody can throw it in the comments if I'm I don't want to be like one of those you get around some people and they're telling the same story they've told a million times. So I don't want to be that guy. But one of the things that I found out being down here is these two city lots, kind of narrow lots, side by side, total about 1.34 acres combined total. And these two lots side by side, they were able to squeeze in 22 townhomes. So there's 22 townhomes going on this 1.34 of an acre property. Okay, I know 1.34, so about an acre and a third. 22 townhomes. So that's a good. They're building them to sell them. So we're going to be getting this project complete. The owner that we're partnered up with is actually going to be selling these properties individually. But what's interesting is that the dirt. I haven't looked it up to see what the owner paid for this dirt, but the dirt was had never been developed before, and so they actually had to bring in fill to get the property up to where it could be built on. And that's one thing. That's what I was going to say. A lot of people don't think about the fact that just because there's an existing house on a property right now doesn't necessarily mean that you can just go replace that house right at its current grade or elevation. And this is kind of getting this in development and construction stuff, but hear me out for a minute. Excuse me. Um, oh, Sherry says, just keep on living. We all become that guy eventually. Yes, I know. I just don't want to. I don't want to. You guys be like, here he is telling the same story again. Okay, but what I found out is that I noticed on this property that everywhere we're putting in our manhole covers, the manhole covers, that go down into the ground for connecting to the sewer system and all that stuff, all of our manhole covers are sticking way up out of the ground. So we have your flat dirt, like you would imagine any field or any lot. You go out and walk around on it, and all of our manhole covers are way up off the ground, in some cases 2 or 3 feet. And there's a project just down at the end of this street, which is closer to the Boise River that runs through here, and they've got their manhole covers and some of their foundations are like 5 feet deep. And I was kind of thinking like, okay, what's going on there? So I started talking to our project manager on this property, asking him about it. And he said, yeah, because of the fact that the flood zone changed for this whole entire area down here in Garden City. Okay, the whole entire area, the flood zone has changed. FEMA has adjusted the floodplain up into this area a lot closer than, of course, originally was. And so a lot of these houses that are built just on your existing grade, your single family homes, even some older apartments, a lot of, like I said, mobile home units, a lot of those properties are technically in the flood zone, even to the point of there would be half of their house would be flooded if that 100-year flood kind of came into this area, which of course, there's a reason why they have floodplains. It's not guaranteed it's going to happen, but it's very probable and likely that at some point in a 100-year cycle, there will be that big flood, that major disaster flood. So anything that's new construction has to be built up above that in order to avoid extremely high insurance costs for the end user, which in this case is going to be your retail buyer that's going to buy this townhome. It's going to be really hard to sell a townhome whenever the buyer goes to get an insurance quote and they find out that they're paying, $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month for homeowners insurance as opposed to the $1,200 to $1,500 that the other competition is charging because it's down in the floodplain. So whenever builders are building down this area, they're having to build up a certain grade. And I asked the project manager, I said, hey, you know the numbers on this, right? He goes, yeah. I said, how much do we have into just the utilities, the underground piping, the dirt work, the fill dirt that needed to be brought in? I said, about how much? Because all that is really kind of one lump sum. You could say, well, what's the cost of the plumbing lines or the water lines being brought in versus the cost of the sewer drain lines, the septic, the sewer system versus the cost of the electrical for the light poles and things? It really is irrelevant. You have to have certain underground utilities in before you can actually build on top of it, right? We understand that. And so I look at it as all kind of one cost, right? You have bare dirt, but what does it cost to get us up to the place where we can actually build? We were supposed to be pouring concrete pads this week to start building on, and we got a ton of rain Sunday and Monday. We got a little bit of a break today. We got a little bit of actual sunshine, but it's supposed to start raining again tonight, and we might even have snow again. So this week has turned out to be a really bad week to have concrete scheduled for pouring and things like that. So it looks like we're going to be bumping that back, hopefully to next week. But the point I'm trying to make here is, and I asked the PM about this. He said, "Oh yeah, I know the numbers. I did all the bids on that." And I said, "Okay, well, what are we looking at?" And he goes, "Well, if I remember correctly, we had about $965,000 in cost. That's our cost as the GC, as the partner with the owner, $960,000 to get everything up to grade with your underground utilities. That's not including the driveway asphalt that has to go in, of course the concrete pads to build on. That's not including anything that has to go on top of the ground, including the asphalt and the sidewalks and stuff. Just the underground utilities, just the fill dirt to bring it up to where you can start building, $965,000 for a little tiny kind of a postage stamp type of a lot for 22 units. So now if you take that 965,000 and you divide that by 22, let's do that real quickly. I'll just do the math. 965,000 divided by 22 units. That comes out to a cost of just about $44,000 per unit for underground utilities and stuff. Now remember, that's not including the permit cost and all the other fees and developmental stuff. That's just for getting the utilities underground. Why do I bring that up? Because it's very, very important to remember that when you're talking about new construction and real estate from a developer's point of view, you want to keep in mind that your cost to develop, right? The cost to build is not just your price per square foot. Like, oh, I think I can build this house for $100 a square foot. Can you? Because if you're talking about new development, right? There's new development. There's all kinds of there's a lot of fees and a lot of costs just on the permitting side, but even just on the utilities and the backfill, especially if you're in an area like this where it used to not be a floodplain, now it is, and so you got to build up high enough to get out of that floodplain. It's a significant cost. So for this dirt, if let's just say someone said, you know what, the dirt is yours. You don't have to pay me for it. Just take it. I'm tired of paying the taxes on it. Okay, well, that'd be a great scenario, right? So you get this dirt handed to you. Well, be prepared to go out and spend about $1 million on utilities and on the backfill down in this area just to get the dirt buildable. And the reason I bring that up is because some of you think that it's just a quick jump over into, well, I'm just going to do this and then eventually I'm going to get into development and new construction. I'm telling you guys, flipping and wholesaling is actually the easier side of this. Now, I know there's people out there that probably disagree with that, but what I mean by easy, I mean is this. Getting the funding for a flip, all you have to do is make sure your numbers make sense, and you can very likely get funding. In fact, you could probably have multiple resources to get your funding from, okay? A wholesale deal, just get it under contract, and you can assign that contract. Okay, well, that's great. It's in other words, there's certain things in the real estate space that are much easier to get into as opposed to let's just say you own this dirt. Well, you got to come up with $1 million just to get the utilities and the backfill in before you can even start building on top of the dirt that you already own. Where are you going to get that $1 million from? Okay, now you're working in a much different classification of lenders. I don't, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but almost anybody can get 50,000 to 500,000 to flip a house. If you have a deal that makes sense, there's multiple places to get that kind of money from. When you get up into, we got to borrow $1 million or at least spend $1 million just to get the place buildable. We were talking about a different kind of lender. They're a little more sophisticated, and you're talking about a different mechanism for getting that funding. There's draws that are paid. Typically, it's not all paid in one shot. There's much more significant risk involved, so there's a lot more scrutiny involved. And I'm just trying to tell you guys that the realistic picture of real estate development, new construction it's not quite as simple as we'd all hope. You think there's this kind of progressive step, and surely there is, but when you're talking about new construction, guys, it can get very expensive very quickly because of the total cost involved, right? So I'm not talking about new construction like just one single family home, but you're talking about development and building multiple units on ground. This same owner that we're working with here, we're partnered with him on another property. There's 84 unit apartment complex going in. Relatively small compared to some of the bigger 200, 300 unit type of properties that investors typically tend to look at more. But still, it's a pretty big project, and funding for this type of stuff is just, it gets really, really crazy quickly. When we're talking about, we're submitting invoices for draws that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars every month. So all of that being said, I would say this, the takeaway for us that are, if you guys are, kind of like me, where we're used to dealing with one-off flips, a couple of projects at a time, maybe. Yes, I'm very familiar with new construction. I've done a ton of spec home building myself, built my own houses personally, ground up, everything, framing, concrete, everything, finish, ran the electrical myself. I never messed around too much with HVAC, but was there working with the guys that did it. I've done a lot of that, but I would say this, I'm still in that category of this development stuff, this multifamily stuff is still new territory for me. What I've learned is be thankful for the problems that you have, okay? Because some of the problems that you get into in these types of projects is you can get a terrible reputation very quickly. If you have a project that gets started and then you're not able to get the funding to finish it, there's a lot less. You're dealing with contractors, whereas everybody can find a drywall guy, right? Well, now you're dealing with, we need a drywall company that can give us a guaranteed bid to get this drywall for this entire thing done in so many days, and at a certain price, and licensed, bonded, insured, covering warranty work after it's done. Or like in the case of the cabinets, so we're still putting utilities in on this property, but the cabinet order for 22 units, bedrooms, bathrooms and kitchen, the cabinet order for this project had to be put in several weeks ago. Like half of that money had to be paid up front for cabinets, okay? Because when you're talking about bigger projects, there's much more planning, there's a lot more personnel involved, there's obviously significantly more money. And so you're putting money into stuff that you're just having to spend money up front so that you hope, and so that your anticipation is that it's actually ready when you need it. And that won't be for, several months down the road yet. So does that make sense, you guys? I just want to kind of give you paint a little picture of where I'm at, what I'm working on today. Hopefully I at least gives you some scratches that curiosity itch on some things that maybe you've wondered about before. So let's switch gears a little bit. By the way, you guys feel free to ask any questions you want to as we go. And I've got a little bit of a cough lately, so just trying to keep things keep wet the old voice box. I don't know if that's possible, but it just feels good. So I'll be drinking throughout this thing, but I'm just drinking water, guys. I'm not just drinking on the job. But let's talk a little bit about some of the things that I have also been working on. And again, this is just to kind of give you guys some ideas of things you could work on. But one of the things that I talked about a couple weeks ago is about listing a certain property that I had finished in Caldwell. That property is finished. It turned out great. Very, very happy with how it turned out, but it was a problem property, and because it was a problem property, I was debating what I should do with it. So the question was, should we list it and get it sold? Should we turn it into a rental? And the truth of the matter is, I still haven't quite settled on what I want to do. And so I've got this property. It was listed. I took it off the market because I got an immediate offer on it, full price offer. But then when I started calling the bank and getting the payoff statements and things like that, it was like, man, I'm going to have to come up with money out of pocket to pay this thing off because of the fact that there was a lien on the property that did not show up in the preliminary title report. And so I had my full title report done, and that's whenever this additional lien popped up. So and just to give you a little clarity on what that lien was, some of you guys asked me about that. You messaged me. I know there were questions about it whenever I made my post a few weeks ago, but the lien was a homeowners assistance fund. So the HAF, homeowners assistance fund, during the lockdown period, and people couldn't go to work, so they were, getting behind on payments. There was a lot of government money that went toward basically making sure that the banks got their payments, right? So good, bad, or ugly, indifferent, doesn't matter. It is what it is. And so that money a lot of times was delivered to the lender in lump sums, and it was from these different funds. Some of it was grant money that was forgivable. Some of it was actually an additional loan, 0% interest, zero payments. But that payment has to be that loan has to be paid off whenever the property sells or transfers title. Okay, so I have this property that I got under contract, subject to, is supposed to be a very quick flip. Get the owners out, get it turned over, do kind of a lipstick renovation, and get it back on the market, sell it, pocket an easy $40,000-$50,000. That was the plan, and that was including the cost of the realtors and everything else. Well, what I found out after I got my full title report back, and unfortunately after I'd already paid the sellers cash and they'd moved out, and now I'm kind of stuck with this property. I've got money into it. What I found out was that the property was had this additional fund. They applied for funding once, and then they had applied for it again a couple years later. So once in 2021, once in 2024, and they had been granted this money, and it didn't show up on the preliminary title report. Yes. So a couple of things about that. Make sure that you are careful, and you might even want to try to establish a good relationship with the title officer, somebody will pull these things for you. But at the very minimum, always get a preliminary title report. But in this particular case, the preliminary did not show that they had applied for the COVID relief funding twice. And because they had gotten it twice, and because the one didn't show up but the other one did, I got into a deal where I basically, if I sell it today, in today's market, I will break even, if not have to come to the market with a little bit of money from the realtor. And so I have this conundrum now. I'm debating whether or not I should sell it, if I should keep it. And I have somebody from the community here, the Treasure Valley Real Estate Investors community, that reached out to me and said, hey, let me look into seeing what I can do to get that thing occupied. So her and I met. My wife and I met at the house, talked a little bit about what we could do, and she proposed trying the co-living option. And so here's what's interesting about this. The co-living option for this property it looks like it'll produce somewhere between $875 to all the way up to $1,200 a month per room. $875 being for the rooms with no bathroom and no furnishings. Okay, just $875 per bedroom. On the high side, for the master on the main, the primary bedroom suite with its own bathroom, its own walk-in closet, that room could get up to $1,200 a month as a furnished room. And so you look at furnishings. What are we talking about? We're talking about a bed, we're talking about a dresser, a lamp. We're talking about fairly minimal amount of stuff to put into this. And looking at this house from the perspective of, man, this thing has got 5 bedrooms plus an office on the main floor that with its own closet that could easily be another bedroom, plus a bonus room. Plus, in addition to the living room, you got a big bonus room above the garage with its own closet. But the point is, I think we can get a 6-bedroom, 6 tenants in this property with the management fees and everything. I mean, everything included, including utilities, internet, all that stuff. and the property management fees, I believe that we could probably cash flow on this property anywhere from $500 to $800 a month positive cash flow if we go with the rent by the room model, or it's called co-living, rent by the room, different things. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. I made this post and a lot of you did respond, but I'm curious, now that you have some actual numbers in play, would you keep it as a rental and just let someone else manage it and do co-living? Obviously, there's going to be gaps sometimes between someone moves out and do we have another person that's qualified to move in. Those are realistic scenarios. This particular landlord, she doesn't think that she's going to have any issue keeping it occupied. But sometimes I wonder, is like that's kind of like a realtor saying, "Oh, you'll have no issue at all selling the place," right? Of course, there's no guarantees of anything, and so I'm looking at this, just trying to basically make my best decision. I do not want to have this property taking up headspace in my mind with all the different things that I have going on. Much to fry, so to speak. But if I can have somebody managing it and they're managing it full time, I don't have to deal with tenants. I don't have to deal with the toilets. I don't have to deal with anything unless it's actually a major issue that has to be addressed. Should I keep this property and just rent it out and let the property manager do it? And then, of course, that means I don't get my cash back right now either. That's the other part of it, is I have somewhere to the tune of owing between what I owe and some of the money that I've already put in this my own self. I've got about $100,000 of equity in this property that if I sell it, okay, after I pay my lender, my short-term lender back, and pay my realtors, yes, I won't have any positive profit on it, but I at least get my one lender paid. My realtors would make money. Of course, the realtors are always going to make money, and then I would also get some of the money I put into it back. Now I won't get all of it back, but I'll probably lose about $15,000 to $20,000 if I sell it, and so now I'll get back $30,000 to $35,000. So in other words, I'll probably give money up, but I'll also get a chunk back, if that makes sense. Like in other words, I won't fully recover everything I've got into this. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? So the question is, do I go try to recoup and recapture that cash right away? Or should I just keep it as a rental, let the market come back? There's a pretty good chance that it's going to come back. Tanya says this. She says, I would keep it. If it doesn't work, then sell it. I kind of tend to agree with you, Tanya. Tanya has some rentals here in the area. And I know that that she does. Tanya, I don't want to say things about you that aren't true, but from what I understand, she's got 5 or 6 different rentals, I believe, and she does pretty well. She works here in the area. She lives in a different area of Idaho, but kind of commutes back and forth and has these rentals here. I tend to think that keeping it is actually the better way to go as well. But I haven't rented here in Idaho, and I've also got this one little thing that bothers me, and that's that every time I've owned rental property, I've always ended up just kind of despising it. It's turned into a more of like a job, and it wasn't a job that I liked doing. Now, this is the difference between then and now, is I'm this time involving a property manager. In other words, I don't want to be the one that gets the phone call when the tenant needs to move out. I don't want to be the one that gets a phone call or an email when the person in the room next door has their music too loud. I don't want to deal with that stuff. And to a certain extent, not having to deal with all those types of things is almost worth just, taking my loss and just, learning and moving on. But I mean, we buy properties eventually to hold them, right? That's kind of the whole idea. That's the whole hope, at least. So I don't know. I'm up to input. I've got some really great input that I've heard, which, by the way, thank you, those of you that have kind of given me some pointers. I have definitely been appreciative and actually even learned some things from just making that post I made a couple weeks ago on my Facebook. And several of you reached out and had some really valuable input, which I just want to say that I want to thank you guys for that personally, or here on the show if I haven't done it personally. But I'm still not decided. So I just got a call from my realtor earlier today. She says, "Hey, since we pulled that off the market, I have multiple people that have called and wanted to make offers on it. It is kind of a unique property in the sense that you get a lot of square footage for the price range that it's in. So there's a part of me that's like, oh, I don't know if I got a little bit more, every little bit more I get, it reduces my loss on it. So I might still sell it. I might keep it. I just don't know. I want to hear if you guys have thoughts on it. Now, one thing that I have not looked into very much is selling it on a wrap mortgage. So if someone came in with like $100,000 down and just said, I'll take it, then we could create a wraparound mortgage and just let them have it. It is a basically fully renovated house. I wouldn't have to deal with tenants at all. There wouldn't be any lease contract. It'd just be like sell it with a wraparound mortgage. That's something that I also could do, and I haven't looked into that very much because it's like a whole different avenue, creating a whole different marketing strategy. But what do you guys think about that? Would you do that if you like, hey, I want to get out of it, but I want to get my money back, but I don't want to take a loss on it? Certainly could do something like that, like a wraparound mortgage or even a lease option. But that's kind of where I'm at right now, guys. So I have a full price offer, have multiple free full price offers potentially also have a great, if I put it on the market as a rental, we'll probably rent it for about 5,400 a month total if we count all the rooms. And then minus our mortgage. Mortgage on this one is a little bit high. It's about, because it's a high interest rate, it's about $3,200 a month plus my expenses, when you're renting by the room, you're typically, you're providing utility services and you're providing internet. And then of course there's the debatable on whether or not it's better to have furnishings in there or to let people bring their own stuff. It's kind of just like, man, I've never done this before, and to like that, I've done a ton of short-term rentals. I've done a couple of long-term rentals. Short-term is definitely more my style because I'm a little more. I like being able to see what's going on in the property. Midterm co-living, I haven't done this before, so I'm just telling you guys right now, live stream. I'm a little nervous about it. I've never done it. I don't know what I don't know yet. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, that's where I'm at on it. You guys, if you feel like you just have expert wisdom that I need to hear, please drop a comment. And I like what Tanya is saying. Just keep it, rent it out. I mean, and rent it out for now. And if it doesn't work, then you can sell it. Yeah, and I think the market's going to come back. I don't think it's going to come back immediately, but I definitely think the market here is going to come back. We're kind of flat, and so that flat price point is what's plus that additional lean is what's kind of got me in a bad spot. All right, let me check the comments real quick. Yep, Sherry says keep on living. Yep. Well, I do have something to say, and I want to just throw this out there. I've been putting together a little bit of information about this senior, I guess, working with seniors. I've talked about this a little bit. I've posted about it a little bit. I have several people who've asked me about it, and so I've been considering doing a full separate, almost like a webinar style, but it would be live, and where people can come on and ask questions. I'm curious, if I was to do something like that, how many of you would be interested in getting a link to that? I just want to find out. If I was to do a kind of a live stream event that was specifically for answering questions about my what I call America's best seller leads. So America's best motivated seller leads, meaning these are people that have to sell. They don't. It's not even that they want to sell; it's that they have to sell. I've been talking about doing that for a little while. I've almost got my my mini course put together. Again, it just seems like I know that the editors have their thing to do, but then there's also my part of it that they give me feedback, and I have to go through and check it all and get back to them. So but I thought, well, what if I just did because I had so many people that have reached out to me, and whether it's DMing me directly or even in these comments after these shows, I've had these little things that pop up. So I'm thinking about just doing a live stream webinar. Tanya says yes, she'd be interested, and really just be a chance to let you guys ask questions. If I was to do that, and I would probably end up doing it. I'm guessing I'd probably end up doing it like on a Saturday morning, whenever it's not on my normal schedule. That way I don't have to worry about being interrupted by other stuff. either do it on a Saturday or maybe even a Sunday afternoon. So if you guys would be interested in that, drop in the comment. Would a Saturday morning work better for you or a Sunday afternoon? Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon? Drop it in the comments. Let me know. I'll go back and check this later, even if you guys are watching later and it's not the live stream. Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon, if I was going to do kind of a live Q&A, talk a little bit about what I've been doing in the senior space. We just actually came from an appointment earlier today, and my daughter and one of the people that I've trained here in the Treasure Valley, they're working on that one as we speak. We've got them scheduled for move-in. I've got the movers scheduled for Thursday morning. We're getting them moved into the community that they are going to be living in, and then we're going to be going in and tackling the house. And so this lead, of course, didn't cost me a dime. If I look at it from the point of having to pay for marketing, I didn't go out and pay for a lead. I didn't pay for a la carte. These leads come to me. That's what's so cool about it. These leads come to me because of some very strategic positioning that I have. And it's worked really well for me for the last 5 years. It's working very well for the people that are doing this that I've trained. In fact, Christina, who is one of the gals that I've trained in Portland, she had a walkthrough on Saturday, and then she got an additional 2 other leads that came in that she's going to be following up with this week. So this stuff does work. I know for a fact it works for me, and now we're actually proving that it works for other people as well. And it's just about positioning. It's about being in the right position when this time of life, when this situation arises, and understanding that seniors don't call 1-800 We Buy Houses. They don't call the ugly houses people. They don't call home investors. They don't deal with with the different tactics that typical cash buyer investors use. And by the way, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those tactics. I've done it all. I've done pay-per-click. I've done Google Ads. I've done Facebook leads. I've done mailers. I've done bandit signs. In fact, if you guys are, you guys that are familiar in the Portland area, you know Cornelius Pass Road, where it winds down to Highway 30. That for a long time, I had some signs in that winding, really hairpin turns where everybody has to slow down to 5 miles an hour, and they would see my signs because I went out there about 3 a.m. in the morning when there's no traffic. It was pouring down rain, and I nailed up my bandit signs on that. John buys houses on those poles. Off an extension ladder in the middle of the rain, in the middle of the night. I've done it all, is what I'm trying to say. And I've gotten leads from every one of those resources. But this particular lead source, I say it's America's best leads because they have to sell. And by being positioned, you actually have these leads come to you without going out and spending a bunch of money. So it works really well. I've had a lot of people ask me about it, and I'm kind of at the point now where I feel comfortable talking about it. Tony says, yeah, laugh out loud. Exactly. So I've had some stories about marketing. I've had a guy threaten to pull a gun on me by door knocking before. I've been cussed out. I've been threatened. I could talk for a long time. I've been doing this for 10 years now. So I do have a couple of stories from some experience. I got a couple of battle scars to show. I've definitely got, I've emptied my bank account out spending money on marketing before. But what I want to find out from you all is, if you are interested, then would you stick around with me for like a 60 to 90 minute webinar type of style live? We would just do it like, I would go through some stuff. I'll probably create a couple of slides for it, and then we would do a Q&A. Tanya says either one works for her, Sunday or Saturday. I'm not saying this Saturday, I'm not saying this Sunday. I'm just saying if I can put it on my schedule, if there's enough interest. Which, by the way, I would say this: if you guys know somebody that's interested in working with seniors, or someone who's been trying to get leads but they're not sure where to get started, I would just say, have them watch this, send them this stream, and have them go and make a comment, because I want to know if there's actually enough interest in this, because this is going to be another carving out something in my schedule, and I want to make sure this actually provides value if you guys do this. So if you are interested in finding out how I actually have been for the last 5 years, just quietly cultivating what I call America's best leads, best seller leads. So they come into me, I don't go chasing them. And when they come into me, they are not like, well, we're thinking about selling. No, they have to sell. Every one of these situations requires the house to be sold. And so I kind of created a way of presenting a proposal, not an offer, a proposal. And that 3C proposal, I call it, pretty much checks the boxes of every particular option that they might need to solve the problem of that they're in with. It's basically they can't live alone at the house anymore. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know. Drop a comment below. Let me know Saturday or Sunday afternoon. So it'd be Sunday or Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon would be when I would do it. I'd probably try to do it sometime this month here in April, but only if there's enough interest. I'm going to say I need to get at least 10 people that are interested in this, okay? I know there's probably at least 3 or 4 on this particular show, so drop a comment, but also share it or at least give some people DM me because I want to see at least 10 people. To me, if there's 10 people interested, and then that's a nice, easy round number for me to remember. So you guys let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, and I will get something on the schedule. That's about it. I've got another appointment coming up. I don't see any other questions or comments today. We talked about real estate development today, bigger properties, gentrification. Talked about making sure that you know that you're getting a deal that includes the cost of utilities. If you have to bring in a ton of backfill like we're doing on this one here, 22 units at a cost of about $44,000 per unit just to get the dirt up high enough and the right stuff under the dirt where we can start building on top of the dirt. So $44,000 per unit for a 22 unit, it comes out to just shy of $1 million that we're spending on this one project just to get the thing buildable. So be careful what you buy in areas that might have potential for floodplain. And then we talked about just getting into these single family flips a little bit. It's a little bit easier, right? The money's a little bit easier to access. The projects are a little bit easier to get done, get in and out of. Apologize for that, guys. I've just got to wet the appetite and wet the throat there a little bit. The whistle, wet my whistle, as they say, except for with water. Okay, just water. Andy says, I guess Andy gives us given a peace sign or a sub 2, or just letting us know that he's here. Good to see you, Andy. And Andy is somebody who knows a little bit about what we've been talking about. But if you guys are interested in knowing a little bit more about how I've been working with seniors and how these leads come to me, then say yes below or say Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon so I know when to plan it. And I want to see at least 10 people, okay? Because that's what I'm shooting for. Tanya, thanks for being here. Thanks for always joining us. And Andy as well. Shelly, I'm sorry, not Shelly, Sherry. Good to see you too. Peggy, as always nice to have you on. You guys, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for taking the time to spend a little bit on a Tuesday afternoon with me. And I will talk to you guys later. I'm going to get back to work, but you guys keep on doing what you do. God bless you. And let me know if you're interested in this, like I said, America's Bestseller Leads, how I'm getting them. And we'll do something together live on a Saturday morning or a Sunday afternoon coming up. All right. God bless. Take care.